Thank you for joining us. And as we await the arrival of the President of the General Assembly, I thought it would be fitting to do a quick recap. We have attempted to, at the Observer Research Foundation, work with India's permanent rep to the United Nations, Ambassador Ruchira Kamboj, who's been the energy behind an initiative to bring academia and think tanks into a debate and discussion that affects us all. A process that is going nowhere, but even when it went nowhere, it was kept in the dark. We were kept out of those discussions. There was no light that shone. And it was frustrating for many who truly were invested in the future of multilateralism, who believed in the importance of an institution such as the UN, and who truly saw global integration and global partnerships as important for the period when they were emerging out of poverty and misery and was taking claim to the aspirations they believed were now finally obtainable. And therefore, let me first thank Ambassador Ruchira Kamboj for leading this process. Under India's G20 presidency, reforms of multilateralism were a cornerstone. The Prime Minister himself, the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi himself made this his personal mission to shine the torch on some of these big reforms that are required if we want to shape a world that is fit for the future. And under that larger rubric, Ambassador Kamboj took it upon herself to initiate a series of these conversations that would include voices from all corners, many of them with very different viewpoints, divergent perspectives, but nonetheless all important and all welcome. And I have been here since June involved in this process, and I know the IGN has begun today. I'm not sure where it is going, but these conversations, I hope, will help us guide some of the formal processes as well. So without further ado, let me invite the first speaker this morning to deliver the opening address, Ambassador Ruchira Kamboj, who joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1987. She is India's top diplomat, the senior-most diplomat, and has had various postings in a career that's been outstanding and stellar. She served in South Africa. She has, of course, been in the Kingdom of Bhutan. She has also been India's permanent rep to the UNESCO. And of course, now she's our representative in this most august of bodies. So, ma'am, over to you for your opening address.
Distinguished ambassadors and diplomats and friends. As an ambassador from the diverse and dynamic global South, I'm deeply privileged for this opportunity to address this wonderful audience on a matter of some urgency and significance. I'm sure you'll agree with me, the reform of the United Nations Security Council. I wish to express my sincere gratitude to my distinguished peers from the L69 group, whose significant role and steadfast dedication have been essential in bringing our shared objectives to fruition. Now, colleagues, you might agree with me. In our rapidly evolving world, characterized by multifaceted transnational security challenges, technological advancements, and the complexities of a globalized economy, the architecture of international politics is at a decisive turning point. The fabric of multilateralism, once the robust framework underpinning global cooperation, now reveals its vulnerabilities and inadequacies. The United Nations, an institution founded on the principles of collective action and mutual respect, faces a crisis of credibility, challenged by the realities of polarization, protectionism, and the pressing exigencies of the climate crisis. And central to this discourse is the role and structure of the United Nations Security Council. Established in 1945, as we all know, the Council was envisioned as a fortress, a bastion, a symbol of international collaboration, upholding peace and security across nations. Yet, as we stand in the third decade of the 21st century, it is evident that the Council's current form is no longer reflecting the global landscape it aims to serve. The predominance of global North countries in its permanent membership overlooks the rich and varied tapestry of our world today, especially the voices and perspectives of regions such as Latin America, Africa, the small island states, and large parts of Asia. And colleagues, I would say that the time for superficial change has long been past. The symbolic representation of the UN Security Council, a vestige of a colonial past, must evolve. It must evolve to resonate with the current geopolitical dynamics. The incremental expansion of non-permanent members in 1965, though a step forward, falls significantly short of the comprehensive reform that is now requisite. And through dialogues such as the Shifting the Balance roundtables and our gratitude to the Observer Research Foundation and President Samir Saran, it has become increasingly clear that the existing structure of the UN Security Council is an anachronism failing to adapt to the seismic shifts in international relations over the past decades. And as we represent the Global South, our demand is not merely for representation, but for equitable participation in decisions that directly impact our regions. The L69 group of developing countries has been at the forefront advocating for an expansion in both the permanent and non-permanent categories of the United Nations Security Council. Our stance is clear. The Council must not only expand, but also democratize, ensuring that non-permanent members have a substantive role in decision-making processes. India's recent G20 presidency has been instrumental in bringing these issues to the fore. The inclusion of the African Union as a G20 member is a testament to the strides being made towards inclusive global governance. This progress at the G20 level must be mirrored in the United Nations Security Council, where broader representation is essential for the body's effectiveness and credibility. And as we approach the Summit of the Future of the United Nations, it is a momentous opportunity to undertake a holistic review of the UN Charter with a particular focus on the United Nations Security Council. The stark choice laid out by the UN Secretary General, many of you would recall, reform or rupture, during High-Level Week in September 23, encapsulates the criticality of this situation. So in conclusion, colleagues, the mandate for the UN Security Council to ensure global peace and security remains as vital as ever. However, to fulfill this mission in our rapidly changing world, the Council must undergo transformative changes. It is time to move beyond the status quo and embrace a reformed UN Security Council that truly reflects the diversity and dynamism of the world it represents. After all, as Foreign Minister Jaishankar has said, the need for reform cannot be denied forever. Thank you. And it is now my greatest pleasure to hand the podium back to Samir.
Thank you, Ambassador, for that wonderful address that lays out the challenges as well as opportunities to use this moment to create an institution for the future. It is now my honor and privilege to invite Mr. Dennis Francis, President of the United Nations General Assembly, to speak to us. Mr. Francis, from Trinidad and Tobago, was elected as a president in the 78th session, which runs from September 2023 until September 2024. He has a career spanning approximately 40 years in the diplomatic service of Trinidad and Tobago. He has the distinction of being his country's longest-serving ambassador. Before taking office as Director of Multilateral Relations, he functioned as Senior Advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs on all multilateral matters, including climate change and the negotiations on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure now to invite Mr. Dennis Francis.
Your Excellency Ruchira Kamboj, Permanent Representative of India to the United Nations, members of the Intelligentsia of the South, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I thank the L69 group for organizing today's roundtable, a critical platform to facilitate the informal sharing of varied perspectives on United Nations Security Council reform. I would like in particular to thank India for its exemplary leadership in addressing global challenges, for its continued championing of matters of interest to the Global South, and for remaining a critical voice in seeking solutions to the major multilateral challenges facing the international community. These strengths have been on full display, particularly during the pandemic, as well as more recently during India's G20 presidency. While conflicts seem to be spreading across the globe, the Security Council, whose primary responsibility is to maintain international peace and security, however, seems caught in a concerning state of paralysis. With its unsatisfactory discharge of its crucial mandate, the Council is perceived as falling short of its mandate, consequently compromising the credibility of the entire UN itself. Of course, none of this is entirely new. But as the world faces crisis after crisis, the pressure on the Security Council and the UN at large becomes only more pronounced, and continued inaction on matters that threaten international peace and security is only more damaging. We certainly need new and innovative pathways for change. And in this regard, I welcome any innovative solutions emanating from exchanges such as these to move forward the intergovernmental negotiations. As President of the General Assembly, I share the view that we need a council that is more balanced, more representative, more responsive, more democratic, and more transparent. Excellencies, while some of today's challenges could not have been envisioned 8 decades ago, the need for reform has been apparent for some time now. And while the road to reform is a long and arduous one, I firmly believe a positive outcome is not only possible, but achievable. Reform is our collective task and responsibility. It is also the world's expectation by the peoples we are here to serve. As President of the General Assembly, I am committed to facilitating dialogue among member states around this important topic. And I take this opportunity to urge member states to overcome entrenched positions and to move towards substantive progress through genuine and good faith dialogue. Our objective must be to find and/or create ways to move beyond a perpetual stalemate. While it is ultimately up to member states to find agreement, it is important that we hear the voices of diverse stakeholders, including those here with us today. In this vein, I am pleased to welcome the experts who will share their invaluable insights today on Security Council reform. And I encourage you all to engage in the conversation with an open mind and an honest heart. I wish you fruitful discussions and look forward to benefiting from your useful insights on this very important process. Thank you.